2B is the latest addition to the Granblue Versus roster, and she is crazy. She has access to a wide variety of options, making her one of the most unique and complex characters in the roster. However, don't worry, if you're looking to learn about the character and how to play her, I got you covered. Today we'll be going over everything you need to know to play 2B in Granblue Fantasy Versus Rising. I'll be covering what type of character she is, we'll do a brief overview of all of her normals and special moves, and then talk strategy, how to play the character in neutral and how to run offense with her. And of course, I'll be talking about how to convert some of her more common hits that we'll be going over. We'll be covering all of this, and we're going to try to keep it short and concise. That said, before we get into things, I'll be using a lot of common fighting game terminology, and if there's anything that I say that you're unfamiliar with, be sure to check out the FGC glossary, which I'll have linked below in the description. This is a fantastic database that covers all of our common terminology, so if there's anything you're unfamiliar with, be sure to check it out. With that out of the way, let's get into the video. So our first question is, of course, what type of character is 2B? I would say 2B is a character who focuses on space control and overwhelming her opponent with a variety of options. 2B has some fantastic normals to be able to control the pace of neutral and whiff punish her opponent, mostly looking to use her 5M, 5H, and 2M to control neutral. She has access to a number of projectiles and anti-projectile tools, and to top it all off, she has access to a double jump and a hover, making her much better at approaching from the air than most of the cast. On top of all this, 2B has access to a number of tools that are technically reactable, but with how many you have to throw at your opponent, it can be quite difficult for them to react accordingly. With these tools, 2B has a number of ways to be able to force her turn and get her offense started. I would say 2B is best fit for somebody looking to play a space controlling character and someone who just likes to have a wide variety of options at their disposal. 2B has a number of unique traits that we should go over before we go any further in this video. First off, 2B does not have access to dash attacks like the rest of the cast do. She also does not have access to proximity normals. In place of these things, all of 2B's standing normals lead to a unique forward advancing target combo series. Light, medium, and heavy are all different strings, and you can change the ender to all of these strings by pressing light, medium, or heavy as well. These target combos can be performed on block, on hit, and yes, even on whiff, giving 2B access to whiff cancelable normals. While not having dash attacks and proximity normals does limit her in some regards, this unique target combo system gives her a lot of different ways to approach combos and pressure that other characters don't have access to. We'll talk more about these when we go over her normals, though I'm not going to go into every detail about them, we're just going to talk about what you need to know. On top of this, 2B does not have the normal skill cooldown system that other characters have either. In place of it, she has a skill gauge, which is segmented into 10 blocks. Each of 2B's special moves costs a different amount of skill gauge. The light and medium versions of her specials cost 3 blocks. The ultimate versions cost 4 blocks, and the heavy versions cost 5 blocks. The skill gauge will regenerate slowly over time, and it regenerates faster the lower on skill gauge you are, and all of 2B's unique target combo enders regenerate a set amount of skill gauge as well. With all of these in mind, she is quite the unique character, but don't feel overwhelmed. Most of these things honestly flow pretty nicely once you get into playing the character. Alright, now we can talk about her normals. 5L is a fast, relatively far-reaching light normal. This is going to be your go-to normal when looking to mash out of your opponent's offense. It's also quite useful for your own offense as it is +2 on block and easily frame traps into her 2M for a high reward frame trap. 2L is a fast low and it can be chained into itself, making it useful for frame traps. It can also be cancelled into her 5L, which is useful for converting and staying at advantage. 5M is one of her best normals by far. This is a fast, far-reaching, forward-advancing normal, and you can kind of think of it as a replacement for 6XL since she doesn't have access to dash attacks. This is a great tool for whiff punishing your opponent or approaching. This can be cancelled into her medium target combo, which is great for hit confirming, which can then be cancelled into the medium target combo ender to get a knockdown on hit. However, this target combo is quite unsafe on block, so make sure you're cancelling it into a special move. Usually 236L or 236M will suffice. 2M is another fantastic normal and is going to be one of your main pokes in neutral. It is quite fast and has relatively low recovery, so it's a very safe poke in neutral and is great for controlling space. This can be cancelled into 214L to give you a knockdown on hit, and is relatively safe on block when spaced. 5H is her farthest reaching poke and can lead to massive reward on hit. Due to the slightly longer startup and longer recovery, I wouldn't use it too often, but it is absolutely worth representing occasionally due to the range and reward. On hit, this can be cancelled into the heavy target combo, into the medium ender for a knockdown, and once again on block, it is best to cancel into 236L or 236M to stay safe. Her 2H is a extremely good anti-air with very high reward attached to it. Importantly, you can get a combo from this as an anti-air even on normal hit. On hit, the move can be cancelled into 60U, which is a dash cancel. On normal hit, you can usually link a 5M cancelled into the heavy ender for a knockdown. And on counter hit, you can usually link a 5H, which can give you massive reward. 6U is a command dash of sorts that has a parry mechanic automatically built into it. After a brief amount of startup, 2B will book it across the screen, and it's honestly hilarious how fast she runs. Importantly, this can be useful for dash canceling your normals as well. Usually, this mechanic does not cost any skill gauge, but when you're canceling into it, it does cost 4 skill gauge blocks. This can be very useful for catching the opponent off guard because it's honestly pretty fast. 4U is a command backdash that also has a parry mechanic built into it. The parry window is much bigger on the backdash version compared to the forward dash version. When you successfully parry a move, 2B will do a very traditional action game dodge where she will in-ball through the move. And depending on the move that you parried, you can often get a punish on it. The amount of frame advantage you have after parrying something depends on the attack that you parried, so whether you can get a punish on it or not is going to depend on what you parried. However, this dodge also has a unique follow-up you can perform with the U button. This follow-up punishes most things after a successful dodge, so basically if you're unsure if you can get a better punish or not, the U button is always a safe bet to get a knockdown at least. This parry is not frame 1 invincible, so you can't use it on wake up or versus frame traps for the most part. It's best used when you are slightly minus and spaced away from the opponent, where they would have to press a longer startup, farther reaching normal. 2U is very similar to her 2M. It has slightly less range and is worse on block, however it hits low, so it can be useful for stopping your opponent from walking back, for example. It's not a bad moon by any means, but I do find it is most often outclassed by her 2M, unless you're looking for a low. JL is a fast jumping attack, which is useful for air-to-airing. JM is, for the most part, a slightly slower but farther reaching air-to-air tool. Her jumping heavy is by far her best jumping attack, and you're going to be pressing this move a lot. It is quite large, and it even hits behind 2B, and it hits quite far behind her as well. Her JU is a hover, and this can be quite useful for baiting anti-airs or just delaying your air movement in general. While hanging on the pod, you can choose to hang on it for a little while, or you can cancel into any of her jump normals to force your way off. Just as a reminder, she also does have a double jump. This double jump can be very useful for baiting anti-airs or repositioning somewhere on screen. Between her double jump and her hover and her fantastic JH, this really gives 2B a lot of extra leverage with air approaches. 236L is a relatively basic projectile, though it doesn't go full screen. Notably, this is her only special move that does not cost skill gauge. This move is mostly used to end block string safely, as it is only -4 and has decent pushback. Usually it leaves 2B at a good range for herself, where the opponent will find it difficult to challenge her from there. 236M is a beam projectile, and this one does hit full screen. This is a fast projectile that even gives you essentially a knockdown on hit, which can be very useful for finding a way to start your offense. On block, up close it is -4, and if you're spaced further away it's actually 0 on block, which is very good for 2B. This is very useful as a frame trap due to its safety on block, and on counter hit you can even get a combo off of it if you're close enough. This is a great mid-range zoning tool and useful for pressure as well. 236H is another type of projectile, though this one is mostly used for combos and block strings. On block it leaves you at advantage, and you have more advantage the further away you are from the opponent. This is a great way to remain at advantage or be able to force your turn after her forward advancing target combos. And in the corner you can combo off of it, making it one of her go-to combo tools. 214L is a forward advancing attack and is mostly used for combos. This is very useful for converting far hitting poke, such as her 2M for example. In the corner you're able to combo off of the tackle with either a 5L or a 2M, making it very useful for corner combos, and it only costs 3 skill gauges. 214M is a very unique type of projectile. This move will send out a chain that tethers 2B to her opponent and then will pull her in. On block, this leaves you at frame advantage, making it very useful for pressure, and on hit, you can link a 5M for a combo. This is a very strong tool to mix into your pressure and neutral game, as it can be kind of hard to react to if you have been throwing enough other things at your opponent. Though do be careful, because if they spot dodge or roll it, it is punishable. This move is also notably very important for dealing with projectiles, as 2B will phase through projectiles as she's being pulled into the opponent, so it can be used as a hard call out for projectiles. 214H is a giant hammer with a a sweet spot mechanic. When done too close, this move isn't very useful. It does leave you +6 on hit, but you have to be in 5L range to be able to combo off of it. However, when spaced, this move will cause a ground bounce, which you can combo off of with a 5M. If the opponent blocks it, they will be guard crushed, leaving you at +6 on block. This move can situationally be used as a conversion tool if you are at sweet spot range. It can be useful as just a raw neutral tool, as it's disjointed. Although it is +6 when you do it at farther ranges on block, it is usually worse than doing 236H for pressure. 22L is a very special type of projectile. It has slow startup, but it is very plus on block. This move is mostly used for sneaking plus frames into your pressure. Because 2B jumps into the air when she does it, it also inadvertently happens to go over a lot of people's attempts to mash out of her pressure. If the opponent wants to punish this move, they're going to have to look to air it or anti-air it with a 2H. So this move is best used seldomly to sneak in some extra turns on your offense. 22M is a gravity well that will suck in the opponent from anywhere on the screen. This tool can be useful against zoners or any type of character you want to pull in towards you, and it can also be somewhat useful in certain Oki situations. Because it sucks in the opponent, it can give you a lot of unique pressure options, such as staggering 5Ls infinitely. Overall, I don't think this move is too important, but it can do some pretty funny stuff. 22H is yet another type of projectile. When performed, this will put a ring of projectiles around the opponent that you can detonate at any time by inputting 22H again. The main benefit to doing this is that it makes it to where the next time you hit your opponent, you can get a pretty big combo from that hit. And if the opponent blocks your attacks instead, you can cancel your 22H to remain at advantage. However, the ring of projectiles will go away if you get hit or block something, and 2B does not regenerate her seal gauge while the ring of projectiles is out on the opponent. I wouldn't use this move too often, but it definitely has its place, and it can be pretty good, especially in round closing situations, to make the opponent uncomfortable. 236U is a fast full screen beam projectile that will pierce other projectiles, making it fantastic at anti-zoning. On hit, this move will cause a crumple that even from full screen you can combo off of by going into 214M. This move notably is very important for some of her high damage routes. This can be cancelled into from just about any hit, and the crumple forces a crouching state which allows you to do 5HHH into 214M for a full combo conversion. This is one of her most important tools when it comes to damage output. 214U is a invincible reversal. It's a little bit slower on startup, but it is quite a huge hitbox. However, it is of course very punishable on block. 22U is a slow flurry of projectiles that track the opponent. This can be quite useful in certain Oki situations to lock down the opponent and do quite a bit of chip damage. It can also be seldomly useful in round closing situations in neutral to be able to get in on the opponent. 2B's SBA and SSBA are not particularly notable, they're usually just damage dumped at the end of combos. And yes, 2B does have a second SSBA, which is her self-destruct super. This super doesn't really have any practical uses, and it's just kind of a funny thing. So now that we know what type of character 2B is, and we know how all of her moves work, how do we play the character? Most of 2B's neutral is going to be based around her 2M and her 5M. Her 2M is a fantastic poke for controlling space, as it has very little recovery, it can be quite hard for the opponent to punish it, and her 5M is the real wheelhouse of how her neutral works. This is a fantastic with punish and approach tool. On hit, this can go into a basic knockdown with the target combo ender, or it can go into massive damage if you have meter available for 236U. The damage output is very high, so 2B is the type of character who really wants to build meter for her 236U. Even though this move is technically punishable on block, 2B has a myriad of different special cancels she can use to keep the opponent guessing on what she's going to do. You can use things like 214M and 22L to get plus frames. You can use things like 236L or 236M to frame trap the opponent. Even upon blocking either 236L or 236M, 2B is left at such a range where she's still quite effective. Most other characters and their normals will whiff in this situation, which leaves 2B in prime position to whiff punish them. So don't really think of these as ending your turn so much as it's going back to that space control game plan that 2B is really good at. She has other things that can help her out in neutral, such as her 5H, which has very good range. She has her 236M, which is quite a good projectile and gives you a knockdown. She has 214M, which is good to throw out occasionally and quite good against characters with projectiles. Also, never forget about your strong jump options. Normally in a game like Granblue, jumping is not very advised, but with a character like 2B, it can be quite effective. Due to her JH being so big, and the fact that she has a double jump and a hover, this makes it very hard to anti her consistently, and is good for mental stacking your opponent. 2B is both good at controlling space in front of her, and also keeping the opponent guessing on what way she's going to try to approach. When it comes to pressuring with the character, you're mostly going to be pressuring with her light normals, you're going to be staggering your 2Ls and your 5L. 2B is not really a character that's going to be smothering her opponent with plus frames and running strike throw all the time. Instead, 2B often looks to space out her opponent and run spacing traps and stop the opponent from being able to escape the corner. Your main frame traps are going to be things like 2L, delayed 2L, or 2L into 5L. 5L into 2M is another great frame trap. You have access to tons of plus on block projectiles such as 236H and 22L and 214M, and you also have dash cancels which can keep the opponent on their toes, and you can sneak in some extra turns that way as well. Like I said before, 2B is a character where she has a wide variety of options available to her, and what makes her effective is when you're good at mixing up all of those things. Any one of these options are not too crazy to react to on their own, but when you throw all of them at your opponent and you're good at mixing them up, as well as knowing when to just kind of hang back and space out your opponent, it can make 2B quite hard to deal with. And those are all of the essentials to playing 2B in Granblue Fantasy vs Rising. I think this character is crazy fun and I'm really enjoying playing her. Of course, I do want to know what you guys think about the character. Let me know down in the comments below, and if you have any further questions about 2B or Granblue or fighting games in general, feel free to ask down in the comments as well. If you did enjoy the video, please consider dropping a like and a comment, as it really helps the algorithm and I'd really appreciate it. And of course, consider subscribing for future content as well. I have more Granblue and general fighting game videos coming down the pipeline. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.